Otis.
Faith Schuler is her name. Good luck spelling. How old were you when you learned how to spell your last name? Because it took me about 12 tries to send you an email.
I do have a story. One time I gave my signature on a wall and forgot a letter in my last name.
See? Bernie.
Before you told that story, I was going to call that the worst interview question ever. But since you did mess up your spelling of your name, you know what? I withdraw my complaint with Otis. I was going to call that the worst interview question ever. How old were you when you learned to spell your name? Was a pretty terrible question. But as it turns out, you did. So never mind. I'm going to step aside.
This is Weird with Otis and Bernie.
Episode 51. This is Weird. It's another episode, another week of weirdness. Man, we didn't even celebrate 50. Last week, neither of us knew that we were 50 deep. I feel like that's a milestone. Do you not?
I mean, yeah, I guess. If it's
we didn't have confetti. We didn't have giant gold balloons.
If it's a useless 50, though, does it really matter? It's like 50, who cares?
That's a lot of episodes. That's 50 weeks of us trying to be funny.
Saying
and
nothing.
Failing to succeed
nothing.
at that. 50 times.
Yeah, there's nothing there. Thank you for joining us. You can join us on the socials. We stream the show on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook. And, of course, you can download the show, as you've already found out. You can download the show on Wednesdays is when we drop it. Thank you for coming in.
What we'd love for you to do as well is share the show with some friends. Like if you find the show amusing, as we get, regular listeners every week, we can see by the numbers. Thank you for that. Share it with some friends. Just be like, hey, check out these guys. They're pretty good if you enjoy the show. So we'd appreciate it. Helps move the algorithm along.
And I have said this before. If you don't enjoy the show, shut up. I don't care what you think. If you don't enjoy it, who gives a shit? Just walk away. Walk away. There's lots of other things out there for you to listen to. If you don't enjoy it, bye.
That goes for every bit of social media. You can do that on every single social media.
All of social media can kiss my white ass.
Whether it's our post or somebody else's, if you hate
just
it,
go.
You can keep walking. You can keep
just
scrolling.
Walk away. Is there anything, by the way, is there anybody more obnoxious on social media than Who Cares Guy? Like, here's a story.
Yeah.
Like,
who cares?
Hey, here's a baby pony. A baby pony was born. Look at how adorable the baby pony is. Who cares? Why
Always
are you bringing this up? You can go screw Who Cares Guy.
Especially when the Who Cares Guy is involved in like 74 comments and 10,000 shares. He's like, who cares?
Who cares?
The 10,000 people that shared
this. Boring. Baby ponies are boring. Who cares? Shut up. Why are you posting this? Is there anything worse than that guy?
No. Well, we went off on a tangent there, but there is one guy that loves our show, and
who cares?
We had his artist on a few weeks ago, Faith Schuler, who's an up-and-coming country artist and doing very well. If you haven't listened to that episode, do so.
Yeah, great clip of Otis asking a great question in that last episode.
Jeff Golko, is that how you say it? Or how do you say it, Jeff?
That is exactly right. You are right.
See, he's a music.
Honestly, if you didn't say it right, who cares?
Who cares?
Who cares?
Who cares?
Jeff is he manages some musicians, including Faith, and he has a lot of connections in the music world along as well as us. So it was awesome to ask him to come on. He's like, "Hey, podcast is hilarious. I'd love to drop in sometime." So appreciate you having you, Jeff. Hello, how are you?
I appreciate being episode what? Am I 51?
51, something
51.
like that. I mean,
that's
so I'm glad to feel that I was in a great demand, that I wasn't one of the first 50
you
people
were the 51st choice.
or I was the guy that was free tonight.
I mean, yeah, right. That's basically, you too can be a guest on the podcast at 52 or 53.
All you need to have, you two can be a guest. All you need to have is no life, no friends, and nothing to do at night when these guys want to talk.
No life and a stable internet connection is all really the criteria that we have to be on the program.
In good lighting.
Jeff,
okay lighting. I mean, I will even take okay lighting. Okay.
I feel like, Jeff, you should start your own podcast if you don't have one already, because you've got such a story.
I have one, and I didn't do a good enough job promoting it. I kicked one off like a year ago, called Volcano and the Fish with a friend of mine, and
Okay.
we had some pretty. I'd like to say to people, people have come on my little podcast, and then big things have happened. So Jimmy Allen, good friend of mine, he was my first guest, and then since he was on, he went on to win ACM, CMA, this and that. Nate Smith came on with like 500,000 streams.
Oh, that
now
guy's
he's
awesome.
got whatever it is. So I'd like to say that it is we are the foundation and the springboard for people's careers. However, my co-host's wife got cancer about 4 months ago, and so we put it on hold. Plus, the numbers were kind of
I got you.
Listening to your guys' intro, like if you go and listen to it, we have some really cheesy music, and listening to how you guys' show kicks off, I now realize why people weren't listening to our podcast.
Oh, they don't listen to ours either. We
don't listen to ours either. There's a lot of like our podcast is the poorest rated podcast that has great paint on it. Like, we both know how to make it sound good. It's really expensive paint on a really shitty house. Like, it's that's sort of the theory. It's like, well, we know how to make it sound big. All 5 of you are coming along. Yay!
Oh,
Yay.
shit! See?
Oh, see.
Lost the light. We lost the light.
That's
He's screwing up the lighting. See?
That's it. That's it.
Amateur show.
Oh, that's even worse. That's the
I can't
light.
even see that.
All right, we good now.
So Jeff, we've been friends for a little over a year or so, just in the music business,
Yes.
and I did not know your full story. And so today, before we kick the podcast off, I'm like, hey, give me a little summary so we can kind of intro you. And you give me the craziest story I've ever heard in my life. It wasn't like, I figured, here's what I assumed. It was like, I've been in the music industry for about 25 years. I've had a lot of great artists, name. But it's been a great career, and I love what I do. No, you're like, I was in the Clinton White House. I did security for Nelson Mandela. I don't know.
Stop talking, because I want you to tell this on the podcast. Like, I had to stop you from telling the story.
So you're new to the music industry because you've had such an eclectic world.
I am like, I don't know, 5 years, 4.5, 5 years in.
All right.
It's felt like 100. As I say to people, if you think about it, I think last time there was so I come from the easiest way to put it. It's interesting. I remember growing up, I used the word like jack of all trades, and my dad nearly like smacked me on the back of my head and be like, "Don't ever use that word to describe yourself. It shows you have no focus. You have no focus, right?" Well, I'm 45 and I'm a jack of all trades. So here's the deal. I'm a former political hack that cut my teeth in politics, presidential politics. I was same intern class as Monica Lewinsky at the White House.
All right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always obviously pre-COVID, back when people actually went to travel to people's homes and people socialized. But my dad loves that in his billiard room. God, that sounded really snobby to say. In his room with a pool table.
Billiard room.
It sounds like did somebody get killed with a noose?
Right, with the candle.
I think there's only a few things that I could have said that sounded more elitist than yes.
I'm sorry.
In the billiard room.
Jesus,
With the candlestick.
Win the award for the whitest thing said tonight. Continue.
In the billiard room, as you pass by, there's a photo of all the interns in front of the White House with President Clinton, and I'm in the photo. And
Where's Monica standing?
Look real close.
Where's Monica standing in the photo? Where's she standing in the photo?
She's like a couple of rows up and to the left of me, and I'm like sort of to the right. I'll send you guys.
She wasn't like grabbing
she's one
ass.
of the ones kneeling in front.
Well, this was in the beginning. You got to remember, this is early on, which we'll get to as we get to the story. It's a funny thing that actually there was a news article that came out that mentioned myself and Monica. But anyways,
did you have a character in the new?
I started in politics.
Did you have a character in the new series about Monica Lewinsky in the Clinton White House?
No, thank God, no.
You were like an extra.
No, listen. However, one of my best friends to this day is a Secret Service agent who had to let her into the Oval Office.
Wow.
And I have a lot of friends that had to lawyer up and went in front of Ken Starr. No, I'm just glad that I was just an intern at that point in my life, making photocopies.
Are we going to have to sign a non-disclosure after this?
Photocopies and making photocopies.
I was going to say, are we going to have to sign a
I mean, it
non-disclosure
happened 20
after
years
this
ago, so I think we're good. I think
There's
we're
a bunch
good.
of beeps and this and that, and yeah,
We're-
no.
I don't think we
Did-
have to
what-
redact a bunch of stuff. It's 20 years ago. We know what
I
happened.
think it's pretty much all. I think it's pretty much all out there at this point.
I think
How
once
do you-
David Schwimmer plays somebody in the miniseries, it's all out in the open. Like I think that's the point where you're like, once we've had a dramatization, that they're not going to redact any new material.
Yeah, no, honestly, and I'll never forget. I was working at White House, the drug policy office for the Drug Czar, and I remember when Ken
let's
Starr's
just
report
threw that
came
out. We're just going to go run by that one. You were a drug czar helper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, okay, so the short version of it is, so I was an intern doing interning thing. Well, what a normal intern in a normal
interns.
administration
Right.
would have done.
Right.
So I did non-Monica stuff. I did photocopying. I did giving tours. I did writing memos. So anyways, I moved over to the Drug Czar's office because my degree is actually in criminal justice, of all things. And so I did do a field work, and so I went to the Drug Czar's office, and the same thing. They had me doing photocopy and whatnot, and it was the same time that McGuire and Bonds, or Sosa and McGuire were launching bombs,
Nice.
home runs left and right,
Yeah.
and I thought to myself, gee, why isn't the government using professional sports as an avenue to educate kids about the dangers of drugs? And so I went and told my boss, who coincidentally I work with to this day on some other projects, and I gave him the idea, and he's like, no, it's not our focus right now. And so what I did is I called some friends at the Red Sox, and I said, hey, we got these new TV commercials that are coming out. Will you show them at the game on the scoreboard? And they're like, yeah, no problem. And then I'm like, oh, would you invite General McCaffrey, who was the drug czar, 4-star, he just retired, 4-star retired general. There goes the light again.
It's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. So, anyways, he had just retired. He pretty much led the first Iraq War. Just a great guy, but absolutely crazy guy. Was an in-your-face kind of guy, even though he worked in an office. And so I got the Red Sox on board, and then I thought as a Red Sox fan, okay, who do I go to now that the Red Sox said they'll do this? And I thought, I'll call the Yankees. So I called the Yankees, and I said, the Red Sox are going to show the PSAs. Would you, and I raised the ante, would you show the PSAs, and would you maybe send some players to schools? Sure. So I keep on making calls. No one knows I'm doing this. Keep making calls, and then I
You're just the intern. I'm going to call the Yankees. Why wouldn't I not?
And so, so I literally, I was going home from my winter break of my junior year, and I went in and told my supervisor, and I was like, hey, just so you know, I've continued doing this, and I now have 27 of the 30 baseball teams agreeing to do all these things. And he looked at me and it was like, are you bleeping kidding me? And I'm like, no. And he's like, how did you do this? And I'm like, I used the phone. I mean, this was pre real major email. And I turned it in. He said, do a memo. And I called my dad, and he's like, you always want to be quantitative. So I did a very simple memo, and it was 27 teams times 81 home games times average attendance, 40,000, equals number of eyeballs. And then I wrote minus the cost of, I was FedExing beta tapes of these PSAs to all these teams. And I put what the cost was, and I turned it in and didn't hear anything. Came home from my winter break. I go back to school. I was going to school in GW in D.C., and I get a call, and it's like, the general wants to see you in 15 minutes. And
Shit.
I shit my pants.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, this is a guy who, he led wars. He's used to,
Listen,
young soldiers not questioning him. And if he says no to something, you don't do it. Here it is. I did exactly what you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
Hey, there's thousands of men who heard that same phrase. The general wants to speak with you in a few minutes, and it was not the same outcome as you. So
No, and I live 3 blocks from the White House. It was the longest, scariest 3-block walk of my life. It was dead winter. I put on my cheap, 5-inch thick wool suit that my mom had bought me. By the time I got to the office, I'd sweat through the damn thing, even though it was winter, because I was so scared. I went upstairs. The Secret Service is like, go in, he'll be right in. I sit down.
The Secret Service.
Do
do you realize most people
Right,
never
it's
have
got
an
like a
encounter?
table.
Most people never have an encounter with the Secret Service. Not one time.
No, you hope you never have an encounter with a Secret
They
Service.
got you walk in as an intern. They got black glasses on, full black suit. They're like, sit.
Right, the earpiece, right.
Talking
It's just right. And they're like, and they go in and sit down. He'll be right in. Now it's like I'm probably soiled. Like when I stood up, the seat was wet.
What do? Before he comes in, I've just shit myself. Can I go do something about that?
I'm sitting here.
I apologize for the smell right now.
Thinking, right. And I'm actually sitting there thinking to myself, like, why the hell am I in here? Like, I'm in college. Like, why aren't I, like, at my fraternity house? Like, what is about to happen to me?
This is mind-blowing.
He comes in and he's a war correspondent. I mean, he's a military guy, so you always see him at MSNBC, Fox, and he sits and he talks, and he'd always go like this before he talked when he was like, and he'd go, and he like made the sound, and then he goes, we saw what, someone gave me like your memo, I saw what you did, and at this point I'm like, he probably carries his own weapon, he's about to pull it out and just boom,
you thought you were going to die? You're like, well, I might die.
I didn't think I was going to die, but I was, indirectly I thought I was going to die because I thought this guy was about to say, get the hell out, which meant I was going to graduate late, which meant I was going to have to call my dad and say I just lost my internship, and oh, by the way, you're going to have to pay for like another semester of school. Those were the things that were going through my mind, in addition to the fact that I have a member of the president's cabinet about to just rip my ass, right?
Right, oh yeah.
And he says, the president loves what you're doing, and the government has never used professional sports as a vehicle to drive an anti-drug message to kids. And we want you to start working here full time tomorrow.
Wow!
And we're gonna, dude. And he goes, we're gonna name you the deputy manager. He said, I'm not gonna call you manager because you're a college kid, and I'm not going to explain that to an appropriations committee. We're gonna name you deputy manager of the new White House Athletic Initiative Against Drugs. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, sir, yes, sir. Sir, yes, sir. Yes, thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Not even thinking in my head, like, how the hell am I finishing freaking college? Like, what did I just do? Like, right?
Yeah.
And I spent the next, and he, at the time I didn't know it, but he didn't really know much about sports. It was really weird. Like, I would, like, schedule him to go do the coin toss I remember we did the first game at FedEx Field for the Redskins. And his executive secretary was like, hey, can you do a briefing memo on the breakdown of, like, football? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? They're like, oh, like, explain to him, like, how many yards for a first down. And I'm like, huh? So I'm, like, drawing on, like, Microsoft Paint, like, on the thing, trying to draw.
This is 96.
Dude, this is 97, yeah. And but at the time, or, like, then we went and did this event, with the NBA, and it was like, I was explaining to him, like, okay, so yes, sir, 2 foul shots on a, and at the time I'm thinking, like, well, what's wrong with this guy? But what I didn't know, because I hadn't spent enough time around him, is he was like he played a lot of sports. He played soccer growing up, and then in the war, I never saw it, but he's got like a big chunk of his arm missing, like an actual war. It's one of his like 10 Purple Hearts.
Yeah.
And he lost interest in sports, and so he just needed a refresher. But because he didn't have the greatest interest in sports, I then spent the summer between my junior and senior year traveling around the country, going to professional ballparks, doing presentations from the pitcher's mound where I'm presenting the team with a plaque from the White House saying, you've teamed up with the White House. They're presenting me with a jersey that I couldn't keep because of, ethics laws, which is probably sitting in some closet somewhere in D.C. But that's how I spent my summer.
There are no ethics.
Like and the government got like the best deal out of it because I was still technically a student. I was a quote student appointee, so I wasn't a general civil servant. I wasn't a political appointee. So basically, they got full like time work out of me at like an intern pay. And I remember when I get my Social Security Administration thing in the mail, it says like $18,000. I remember it always says, and I'm like, they paid me $18,000. But when you're in school, it was a lot of money. It was great. But,
moral of the story: the White House pays just about as well as radio.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
Same pay structure.
And it's just as much loyalty.
There's just as much loyalty.
Loyalty there.
Here's the thing.
Today, gone tomorrow.
It's an amazing story. And were it not for one little thing, he would have gotten intern of the year. Were it not for one other person.
Well, listen, this is where the story
intern of the year.
This is where the story comes.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is your show. I'm realizing I've just like commented. I'm sorry.
No, it's great.
They're both sitting and be like, the fuck? Like, this guy shut up. No, all of a sudden, like I got a phone call saying, hey, you got to go get a copy of U.S. News and World Report. And I'm like, why? They're like, oh, there's an article about you. There's a column about you this week. And I'm in school, right?
Nice.
And the title of the thing is, here's a White House intern that does good.
Boom.
And it basically started out with talking about like, oh, while this is going on one side of the White House.
Oh, I got you.
Here's this intern, Jeff Gulko, and here's what he's done. And
here's a guy that's not blowing the president.
Now for all the other interns not blowing the president.
Right. Here's all the interns that weren't playing with the cigars.
You can thank Clinton. You can go ahead and thank Clinton himself because he's like, find an intern that's doing something good.
We gotta find a good story. We gotta find a good story.
They're like, we got anything good? They're like, well, we got 100 of them making photocopies. No, that's not good. We got this one. What's he doing? Oh shit!
Hillary,
give him a job.
Hillary, you know the interns real well, right? Hillary, if you could go find an intern that's doing some great things, please do.
Look, can I tell you a funny story about this? My college transcript to this day, I have a 1 D-.
And it's in
D is
political
in Delta,
science,
right? Oh, it's worse than that, bro. I can't wait to watch your guys' facial expressions on this one.
Okay, all right.
And I'll tell you the story that went after. I have a D- on my transcript from the George Washington University in the American presidency.
Okay.
Because
a D-.
I had a professor, Forrest Maltzman. To this day, I hate you.
Forrest Maltzman. I like how you say it. Forrest Maltzman. That's just
Forrest Maltzman.
That's a professor in a book.
Had this thing that if you weren't in class, like you lost like a point. Every class you missed, you lost a point. This or that. Well, I was traveling with the President of the United States. I would have thought that would have sufficed.
I came with your fucking class, dickhole.
It became a joke because I'll never forget I was in Atlanta with Clinton at an event.
We're sitting there having some cigars, me and Clinton.
Right.
Well, no, but here's a funny story. Here's a funny story within a funny story. There's a photograph. I don't have it here. But it's Clinton and I in a hallway together just talking and, we're shaking hands. And in that photo, he's wearing a tie. And there was a lot of news about this because that was the day Monica testified for Ken Starr, and the whole story was that she gave him that tie.
Yeah,
That's in the series. Photo was taken that day.
Jesus.
But the conversation that took place at this moment was, "Gee, Jeff, how you doing in that class?" And I'm like, "I don't know, Mr. President. I'm here today, so it's another point off my average. I think I'm sitting around a C right now."
Do you think you could pardon me in that class?
I was going to say that exact same thing. What is it? Hey, I'm failing the president class, Mr. President. Why don't you send a note over?
Just a quick email, if you could.
Just a quick email or something.
Can you fax? Just go ahead and fax it over.
I was so pissed off. And because when you're working in that environment in the White House, like, you truly feel like you are. A lot of these people that get into trouble, like whether it's when any of these congressional, you start to just feel like you're invincible, and you do. And it's the reason why I left that world is like you become a different person, right? You think you're better than everybody. You'll chop your best friend at the knees. But I was so pissed off. I sent a letter to the president of the university, and I was like, "This is ridiculous." I'm like, if anything, I should be on the posters for this school everywhere because I'm your greatest selling point right now. We are such a good school. Our students get jobs as juniors at the White House. That's how good of a school we are.
Yeah.
Instead, I got some putz, Forrest Maltzman, giving me a D-.
Forrest Maltzman. Forrest.
And then can you imagine the conversation I had to have when I had to get the balls to call my dad, who is so proud of me, to be like, "Hey, Dad, just so you know, my GPA pretty much like tanked this semester." How can that be? How can that be? I'm like, well, he's like, "What class?" I'm like, "The American presidency." And then he's like, "Yeah, so Forrest, I'm sorry to this day if you are listening to this podcast and you're one of the millions and millions of people that listen. I'm sorry that living the White House was better than reading about it on your BlackBerry." We'll leave it there.
I mean, I think he's holding on.
What are you doing with your life, Forrest? I'm sure Forrest still thinks about that D-.
Well, we actually were sitting about 2 rows from each other at a GW basketball game the year before COVID, and I kept on saying to my wife, I'm like, I just want to get up and just literally...
I'm going to punch Forrest in his goddamn head.
Tell him what I ended up doing with my life, and she's like, grow up. Just grow up. Grow up.
Why is the wife always got to be the voice?
The voice of reason.
I'm going to key Forrest's car. I hope Forrest, I feel like that. I'm going to key your goddamn car, Forrest.
There's always, I feel like everybody's got that one person in life that you just think back on. It could be 15, 20 years, and you're like, that guy or girl.
Yeah,
you know, like, you know what? He was a dickhole. I don't even. I see him, and then you run into him at a random spot. You're like,
here's one, ready? Dude, he's teaching people the class, and I'm standing outside Air Force One at 20 years old. That's what made no sense.
He was jealous. Forrest, you were jealous.
I know. I think that's what it was. If he had been nice to me, I could have taken him for tour of West Wing, but his
Did
loss.
you ever hit on Monica at all?
No, dude, because I literally only saw her the first day at orientation, because the way it works is everyone gets sent off to their own respective offices, and the building, now it's called the Eisenhower Building, but it used to be called the old Executive Office Building, which is the big giant building, if you've been to D.C., just to the right of the West Wing. Okay. That's all White House staff. That's a couple of thousand, people, staff members. So you went over to the West Wing. First off, you had to have a blue badge, which only 5% of each office had, and it was based on need. So I had a blue badge, and I wouldn't lie. I mean, I'd just go over at times and just sort of walk over as if I was supposed to pick up something from someone's desk, just because I'm like, shit, maybe I'll walk by the president. Because it was cool, but we were all in our own little silos.
Since this was 97, did you ever go making copies? I'm just over here making copies.
Dude, I
that is
I probably made millions of copies.
That's SNL. That's the SNL.
I know.
I know. Oh no,
I know exactly what it is. That's a pull.
Jeff set the copy making copies. Well, the president.
That's pretty amazing.
Even know he exists.
You know what I did at 20 years old? I hosted a club and smoked weed. I hosted at a club, the first club show at the college town. That's what I did, and you were with the president.
The biggest challenge for me was I just joined a fraternity. And then I never could go to not that I was going to do the drugs, but because I worked in the drug czar's office, I was being drug tested monthly.
Oh, yeah.
Random.
I was hoping that at the end.
I literally couldn't. I stopped going to the parties because I'm so afraid. Oh my God, what happens if it's on my skin from contact, or I'm in the wrong room and I can't lose my internship.
Right.
Your fraternity brothers.
I thought that your story was going to end with you were the Mark McGuire whistleblower on his steroids.
you got Forrest Gump's life,
right?
No, well,
did you also run the most touchdowns for Alabama?
Right.
No, can I say something? Without getting too much into it, we were involved with a lot of that stuff, and then I was subsequently involved with those hearings.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So, as I say to people, I feel right now in my life, I feel like I'm the most well-connected and experienced poor guy. I feel like I'm one phone call away from everybody, but I can't,
I feel like that's the same way.
I'm nobody.
You can look back at my, photos from my career, and I'm like, oh, look, hey, they're some of the biggest people in music ever. Wow, they're, the most loaded people in the world. And then I'm like, I'm still broke. I'm broke.
Look, I can hang out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I've done all these great things, and I got a $9 freaking light that's balancing on top of my monitor.
Coming up here in just a few minutes, we are going to. There's a video that's gone viral on TikTok of a mom who thinks that she's got it figured out. Otis, I think you're going to enjoy this. She's got a mom hack that I think that you can employ with your kids.
Okay,
coming up.
This is weird.
Welcome back. This is Weird, episode 51. Jeff, are you Beyonce? We got a wardrobe change in the middle of a podcast? You realize that break was only 2 minutes long, right?
I know. Well, you know what? I literally just got so worked up. I think talking about that professor, when we went to break, I literally looked at myself in the camera. I'm like, God, you're sweating. My face is red. I'm all red.
Still want to punch that guy.
By the way, we're going to bring. Let's welcome in that guy. That guy's waiting in the.
Why didn't we not prep and do that?
Let's bring him in.
By the way, here's Faulkner or whatever his name was.
Forrest
Fisherman.
Who, by the way, would have definitely been played by Robin Williams in the movie.
No.
Would have been him with a big bushy beard.
Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe would have played.
I don't think he did very good in the class.
Rob Lowe would have played him.
Rob Lowe would have played him.
Lifetime series. But Jeff Golko is on the show with us tonight, and we do a little segment at the end where we like to break down a video that's going viral on the internet called VirIdiocy. And Bernie, you got it queued up there. This is
I do.
It's a mom with a mom hack, and you love the mom hacks.
I hate the phrase "mom hack" with a fiery passion. I think it's stupid.
The ultimate TikTok made me do it mom hack. We have 4 kids, and I hate yelling in our house. I bought these little doorbells, and they are a game changer. Each of my 4 kids has a doorbell button in our kitchen and a chime plugged in their bedroom.
Okay, so where's she going with this?
She's
For real?
No, this is her. She thinks that this is a thing that's going to work.
They're upstairs, and we need them to come down. We simply click the button, and the doorbell rings in their room.
Please
They
stop
also
it,
know
lady.
to come down in the morning when their doorbell goes off. These
Stop
are about
it.
$15 each.
No, this is not how this all
Have you
works.
guys ever been on a cruise?
Yes.
Because that's like the sound. Like if you're putting that in my room and you're ringing the bell, I'm running down the stairs thinking it's time for the buffet.
right.
Plugged in their bedroom. If they're upstairs and we need them to come down, we simply click the button, and the doorbell rings in their room.
We simply click the button because we're too lazy to walk up the stairs.
How big?
What are you doing?
How big is your house?
Right? Oh, you couldn't walk the 100 square feet to go to your daughter's room to tell her dinner's ready?
Can you see why other countries hate us?
Hate us.
Does?
There's a
Like, click the
war
button,
going on.
yes.
If this is not a first world problem, I don't know what is.
Doorbell
Like,
rings in their
we have
room.
to send a doorbell to
also-
our kids?
Know to come down in the morning when their doorbell goes off.
By the way,
Nobody-
that's my favorite.
nobody-
They also know to come down in the morning when their bell goes off. Do they? Do they really come down when the bell goes off? Oh, mommy rung the bell. That must mean it's time. Mommy's ringing the bell. It's time for us to go downstairs, children.
Hey,
Mary Poppins, stop
Hey,
with this.
but you know what? Wouldn't we feel horrible if we learned that mom had like no legs and she couldn't walk up the stairs? To go tell
I
them
don't
it's time to
believe
eat?
Yeah,
that.
you had to go
I
there.
don't believe that. I
To
don't
come
believe
down, we
that.
simply click the button, and the doorbell rings in their room. They also
You know
know
what?
to come
This-
down in the morning when their doorbell goes off. These were about
Listen,
$15 each, and they're linked on my
Susan,
Amazon under Home
Susan.
Favorites.
Susan, no. Listen,
Just stop.
this is not something innovative. This was done by Pavlov many decades ago, and it was for dogs. It was for dogs. This is how they train dogs. This is not for children.
Yes.
Mommy
Good
rung
God.
the bell. And when we get to the bottom, she gives us a piece of bacon.
They show up. They show up at the bottom of the stairs on all fours, like looking up at her for a treat.
Yeah, they get to the bottom of this. They get to the bottom of the stairs and they sing a song like they're in Sound of Music.
Listen, if okay,
Or they take the batteries out upstairs and they don't hear the freaking
right?
right,
Oh,
yeah.
they took it out of the plug. Yeah, so that's the thing is for them to recognize the bell and want to come down because the bell went off, there has to be a reward. She didn't say what the reward is, so she's giving them a treat like you would your dog when you click the thing, click click, treat, and that's how your dog learns. She's literally applying dog obedience training to 3 or 4 year olds.
Here's the thing: we haven't heard from Riley in weeks. We haven't heard from him in weeks because he hasn't heard the bell, and he's just up there. I'm afraid
How
he's
old
dead.
is the kid?
She
I'm afraid
doesn't
he's
say.
dead. 25. 25.
I imagine the one 13-year-old kid that's got all black on and is listening to his death metal up in his room is like, "F you, mom, and your stupid
Yeah.
f***ing bell." He's never
Right.
come down to the bell.
He's sitting there and he's like, bitch, you better go watch the Menendez Dateline. You keep on ringing this bell.
Jesus, damn!
Fucking kill you.
He's continuously plotting on her because of the stupid bell, and he gets grounded every time he pulls it out of the wall because he can't handle the goddamn bell.
Later,
Bell, mom.
later in life, that bell would be the sound that his victims hear right before he claws their eyes out.
You know what, though? If this doesn't work, what does she try next? Since she's going to Pavlov, is she going to get the dog collars that she can hit the
Yes,
button
the
and just
shock.
tap?
She's
So the
gotta
kid's
shock 'em.
sleeping. She's downstairs making the waffles. She's like, oh, I got to wake up Tommy.
That's part 2 of the TikTok video. Is if the bell doesn't work, there's also a shock collar. She's like,
How many
"Oh,
people
yeah?"
have watched that video? Tell me this is a video that's gone completely viral.
It's got like several million views. I hope no one is taking
This is
this.
why-
If you're taking mother advice from TikTok, you have a problem to start with. Let's just say that.
This is
get
why
her-
I feel bad for every artist right now that's trying to like build a name for themselves on TikTok, because it's not about like your music or your content. It's you haven't. A woman posting doorbells for her kids is what people want.
I just can't. This guy can't. These kids can't go to like the U-scan at the store without pissing themselves when they hear the beeps. Like they can't.
Oops. Oh, sorry. Mom, I
Mommy.
peed, Mom.
Mommy, make it stop.
Dude, you know how like you go to Home Depot and they got like drills, they have those cameras and they do make that exact sound so you know like, hey, you're on camera, don't steal the drill. What happens if they go to Home Depot with the kids and they walk down the aisle, they hear the door? Does the kid just beeline out of the store and start running home?
Yeah, it starts running home. That's what happens.
PTSD. It causes anxiety and PTSD is what that bell is going to do for your children.
It just doesn't, I'd like to meet this lady and just be like, huh?
Hey, just do like the rest of us and be like, guys, I've said it 3 times, get the down
Kids,
here.
and I hate
Jeez,
yelling in our
come
house.
on.
Bought these little doorbells, and they are a game changer. Each of my 4 kids has a doorbell button in our kitchen and a chime plugged in their bedroom.
All of her kids are named Cody. How much you want to bet me she's got 4 children named Cody?
They're upstairs, and we need them to come down. We simply
Jack,
click the button,
Avy,
and the doorbell
Walker,
rings in their room.
Gable.
They also
Gable
know to
is
come
the
down in
last
the
one.
morning when their doorbell goes off.
I can't get over that one. They also know to come downstairs in the morning. What is that?
It's quite remarkable that the husband is smart enough to like know how to come downstairs on his own. Although perhaps their bedroom's on the main
Yeah,
floor.
she doesn't have the
I
bell
don't
for
know.
the husband. Yeah.
Yeah.
He probably left.
at least
already.
the husband-
He left because
Meanwhile,
he's
the
like,
husband's at-
stupid bell
the
shit. I
husband's at
can't.
work trying to figure out how we can get a divorce from this crazy lunatic. It's too lazy to go upstairs and grab her kids.
Wow.
The woman probably doesn't work and has nothing to do other than to get her kids ready for school, and she's become that lazy, she can't, like you said, go upstairs.
If they come to him,
he
don't you think they come to him at one point and they're just like, "What do you think about it, Josh?" And he's just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, with the goddamn
What about when
bells."
these kids go over to their friend's house and they think everybody has doorbells, and they're like, "Wait, you don't? Where's your bell?" And the kid's like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Well, my mom hits a doorbell," and they're like, "What is your mom, stupid?
Yeah,
Oh, she thinks I am. She give me a doorbell."
We've got a ring on the front of the house. I don't know what that's all
Oh,
about.
don't you have kids?
Yes. Yeah.
Can we try? Can we start to implement this and see if
We could. We
let
could.
us know how it goes?
We could try it. They do jump to the front door when the bell goes off, so I think it could work. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
It's
rings the bells for the
unbelievable.
kids, and the dogs run to the bottom of the stairs screaming every time.
I imagine her husband came home the day she bought those, and she's like, "Babe, check this out! I got the best idea today. I went to Lowe's. I spent $750 on 4 of these bells.
God.
And
With
now the kids will
goddamn
come down when you
bells.
ring it. Watch. Boom, doo,
It's never going to work. Honey, that's not going to work.
The other thing that I don't understand is like, how often during the day does she only need to see one particular kid?
Dude, are there different
Like in the
bells
morning,
for
like
different kids?
she says she uses them so that they know it's time to come downstairs in the morning. Well, couldn't you just have one? I can't even
bell?
believe I'm trying to rationalize how many bells right now. Lady, you don't need any f***ing bells. Be a mom like my mom was and everybody else's mom, and just be a mom. This is stupid. This is
I have to ring the bells in order to not make eye contact with my children.
what would Forrest Maltzman think about this? Is
don't
what I
know.
want to know.
He would Forrest Maltzman D- on this.
D- for mom.
My thing is like, why can't she just do what most parents do and count to 3, not even knowing what you're going to do when you get to 3.
Right? No,
nobody ever
you
knows.
never know what you're going to do.
Nobody ever knows what's going to happen at 3. But
I never can commit when I get to 3. It's like 1,
2 and 3
2,
quarters.
and then you get to 2 3/4, 3.
Right.
Now I want you
See,
to
I was like,
go to your.
Don't make
your
me-
room.
don't make me
I
get
don't
to
want to
3.
have to. Don't you? I will take away. We should shut off. Here's what we should do. We should shut it off. Shut it all the way off. 3.
my mom was one of the ones that, like, when you fought in the car, her line was, "Don't make me." We'd be on the expressway in Boston, right? "Don't make me pull over on the side of the road." And me and my younger sister, are like, "Go ahead, pull over. What are we really supposed to believe that you're going to leave your 2 kids off on the breakdown lane of the expressway in Boston? Like, pull over. I'd like to see you try to merge right back into the traffic at rush hour, Marla. Let's see how well you do with this."
That's kids from Boston. That's definitely growing up in Boston. Yeah,
Exactly.
my mom probably would have left us on the side of a rural road next to corn at some point. She thought about it, I'm sure.
I will pull the car over, and if you don't, what you need to do, you need to stop with that, and I will take it away. I never can commit.
The irony is, like, that was in the 80s, you know, and she's worried about my sister and I yelling at each other. Meanwhile, she had us in the back of a station wagon that didn't even have a seat or seatbelts flopping around, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the thing. My kids have never got to 3. That nobody knows what 3 means, but they listen but by the time I get to 2.5, because I'll give them a 2.5 or 2 3/4, because again, not committing to 3. I can't commit to 3.
I don't know what to do.
But generally, they don't commit to 3 either, so they go do. I'm still at the point where they'll do before 3, so we're good. I don't need the doorbell. The thanks, lady.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There's the show. This is weird for the week.
Jeff, thanks for
join
joining
us.
us, man.
We're done?
Yeah.
That's it.
51
easy
is in the... I feel bad. I feel I talked too much.
51 is in the books.
We didn't even talk about terrorists. I mean...
Oh, God, you didn't even get to the terrorists.
Save it. We'll do it another time. We give it another show there.
Folks, come back to episode 102.
That's it.
And they cycle through and I'm back.
We're starting all over.
Oh, gosh. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Jeff, and hanging with us tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed it being live.
No, this
I know
is
you
fun.
enjoyed listening, so thank you so much. It's fun.
Yeah. My pleasure, guys.
You can find us on the socials, YouTube and Twitch, and Facebook.
the show.
And we do that.
Share the show.
Yeah, share the show. If you like the show, share the show. That's how we grow the show. Please do that. And we'll talk to you next time. See you.